Who knew Morrisburg was so darn cool? Don't tell, oh my friend. Yeah, and thanks very much to everybody involved tonight, to Graham and to Derek and everybody I met. There's a lot of people, you know. Sean on sound.
Yeah, baby.
And I'm going to play one more tune. This tune was, you know, you may have noticed there's a lot of, you know, sort of funk influence in my sound, which is kind of weird for an acoustic guitar player. But you know, as you may have seen in the little thing, at the beginning of my bio, it says I kind of started playing guitar by accident, and it's true. Like, I mean, I wanted to be a musician, but I had no idea specifically, you know, that I had to play an instrument to be a musician. I just want to play music. So as a result, like, I play a lot of instruments, and the guitar is just so darn portable. It's a very handy one to take from gig to gig. You know, and I do this thing, and it kind of sticks out, and that's cool. But one of the things that makes it stick out is the fact that it's got all this groove kind of stuff to it. And this tune is a really good example of an early, very heavily R&B influenced tune. I wrote it in about 1994 or 5, and at the time my stepson was in his early teens, and he was listening to what everybody called alternative at the time, which was wildly popular, top of the charts, best-selling records. Alternative to what? But anyway, you know, it was a name, they had to call it something. It was either that or Jimmy. That would have been a stupid name for music stuff. Just saying. So, yeah, alternative, you know, music. And I thought all the stuff he was listening to sounded a lot like the records I grew up listening to. So I just happened to mention to him one night at dinner, I said, Tash, that band you're listening to, what are they called? Phlegm or Spit, whatever. Anyway. Yeah, they're awesome. They sound like my old Black Sabbath records. I thought, you know, a little bonding, you know, there. And he kind of looked at me sideways. He didn't know what I was talking about. Because, you know, the Osbournes still didn't have their own television show yet, right? It's too early. So I thought, okay, well, I brought up another thing later in the conversation that I had seen on Much Music, a repeat of an interview that Kurt Cobain had done in 1990, where he, at the time, felt at the dawn of the 90s that there wasn't as much of a generation gap between parents and kids as there was, say, well, when I was growing up. You know, my parents grew up listening to big band or opera or whatever, and when they saw my Black Sabbath record with a green lady on the front, they thought I was going to hell. A big difference there. So Kurt Cobain ended up saying he felt that there wasn't, that, like, basically parents and kids were listening to the same kind of music. I thought, more bonding across the years. I could see him recoil in horror at the thought. And the next day he started listening to nothing but gangsta rap. And it was a bit more of a stretch for me to come up with an analog from my youth. You know. But the one thing I noticed was that what I could hear coming out of his room when he was playing his music was mostly the drum loops that would sort of make it through the walls, you know, like kind of thing. I thought, oh, that's kind of like Superstition by Stevie Wonder. There is an analog here. All right. So I thought, I can borrow that. So I wrote this next tune, and it's a good one to have. I do a lot of shows where, you know, I get invited to play for like high school students during the daytime, say, if I've got an evening show in some city like Edmonton or something, and there might be a school with a really good music program, and they invite me to come in and blow the kids' minds with weird solo guitar music. And before YouTube, I mean, I know I'm dating myself, we're talking 46 months ago, way back then, there were, you know, very few opportunities for kids to see somebody rocking out a solo guitar. So I would really enjoy these shows. I still do. I just did one the other day in Ontario here, and it was a lot of fun. And what I find inevitably, there's always a gaggle of about 3 or 4 young guys, and it was much more prevalent in the 90s. You know, they'd come up to me, they'd have their backwards baseball cap on, and oversized clothing, you know. big droopy drawers and a chain that did nothing coming out of them. And hold on. Punctuating everything they said. And they'd have to walk up to me like this, you know. The conversation usually sounded like, "Yo, Mr. Ross." Yeah, and I was just like, word. I was like, you know, I was like, watching you, man. You're like, you know, freestyle. I mean, this is like, you know, red hair and freckles I'm talking here. I was watching, man. You're like freestyling, you know. That's awesome. And I was with my buddy, right? And he's like, oh, and I'm like, chaw. And then he started doing his slap harmonic stuff, man. I was like, whoa! And he's like, sick. Rock, dude. And that feels really good. So here's a tune inspired, believe it or not, by my son's gangster rap. And I'm losing a nail, so we'll hope for the best on this one. It's a tune called Afraid to Dance.